the Christian metal scene was the closest analog for me as somebody who grew up with like really strong religious roots in Islam, really strong spiritual roots. So I was heavily influenced by that. And I think there's a lot of crossover with the Christian metal community. So that is where we got naturally just lumped in.
Real quick before getting into today's episode, I just wanted to mention a few things. Going to do this as quick as possible, I promise. First things first, we have a Discord server if you're not already a part of it. It's the best place to get all the news and updates about the podcast, but it's also a thriving community of people just talking about MySpace, deathcore, metalcore, all the fun stuff. Also, we do these podcast recordings live on Twitch every single Wednesday, 6 p.m. EST. If you want the fully unedited, unfiltered versions of these, as well as being able to be a part of the conversation via Twitch chat, it's a fun time. Come check it out. Last thing I want to plug, we recently launched a Patreon. We finally did it. People have been asking us for a way to support the podcast, and this is our way to do so. So if you want behind the scenes posts, if you want to be the first to know about upcoming guests and events, if you want early access to episodes, if you don't want platform ads or no YouTube ads, stuff like that, Patreon is the way to do so. We also have a supporter-only Discord chat, as well as these group calls that Yan and I do every second Friday. So any of that interests you, or if you simply just want to support the podcast, I'll be leaving a link to the Patreon in the description below, as well as the Discord and the Twitch. So enough yapping. Thank you so much, and enjoy this episode. Welcome to episode 71 of the Brutality podcast. My name is Dom, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Yan. And this week, we have a guest that we've been looking forward to having for a little while now. And I'm extremely happy to be finally having this conversation. We have Saud from the Crimson Armada. Welcome to the show, my man. How you doing?
Yo, what's up, man? How y'all doing? Good to see y'all.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's I remember anecdotally, kind of seeing, I think it was like some sort of YouTube or, Spotify like listing come up of a song of yours that was the first single was about to come out, but it wasn't out yet. Maybe it was like out in certain time zones or some random thing. And I was like, oh, let me go see what's going on Instagram, found the page, and I was like, I'm going to DM right away. we got to make this happen. So it's cool. It's cool. It's been cool to see the band, do the comeback. And we've got so much to cover in terms of, what's new, but what's different, what's the same. There's a lot of kind of throwback elements to the stuff you're doing now. And obviously you've been doing some music with other projects as well. So first and foremost, welcome back.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, and Yan and Dom, nice to meet you guys. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I'm excited to be here and excited to dive into this all TCA stuff and things outside of it too.
Well, let me tell you, our community is not only us. I mean, we're both super stoked. I mean, we've been talking about it for a while, and we were both extremely happy. I remember when you found the Instagram thing, I asked like 5 times. I'm like, "Are you serious? Like, it's happening?" And like, everybody's super happy, and even our community.
I told my mom to go get the camera, like the whole thing.
There you go. But we were talking about that earlier. But you guys always been like, it's hard to explain. Like, I wouldn't say like it doesn't make sense to say fans favorite, but I mean, they could really have a cult following, really beloved in the community, and you did so many great things over the years. So every time I make videos on YouTube and stuff about the MySpace era and everything, and every single time I include you guys in anything, it's just overwhelmingly positive. Always, it's always like, oh, Crimson Armada, oh, sick. So it's just, I don't know from your perspective, but from ours, it's just like you're being welcome with open arms. Basically, it's just like, yeah, these guys are back, So we're all stoked, is what I'm saying.
I'm stoked too. Yeah, it's been really fantastic. The response to the new music has, I think, almost overwhelmingly been the most positive it's ever been for Crimson Armada. And we're really grateful to have had the opportunities in the past that have led up to where we are now. And to be able to make new music like in this style in 2025 is is a major blessing and privilege that this what is, in my opinion, very niche. You know, it's a very small slice of metal, but it was very big for us back in the day, and to see it come back in such a special way where it's really cherished, and there's like really cool new innovations happening with technology, and both like in the studio and in the live sound. It's been a lot of fun to do this kind of music again.
For sure. Like we were talking about it earlier, I was really happy when I heard the music and I saw that you kept your, because you see a lot of bands coming back and entirely just like new direction, new production, like everything is completely somewhere else, but you guys really kept your signature. You did. Of course, there's new elements. There's like we're going to talk about that, but I was happy to see that like the core thing was still there. I think it's rare that we see that. So props to you guys for keep it. Was that something, not to jump ahead, but was that something like really important for you? Like, guys, we need to keep, you know what I mean? Like we need to keep that signature like rawness, that cool sound that we had.
Yeah, absolutely. So the fans got Guardians, and it's really such a special record for so many reasons. One, it was one of the first records that it was the first record we got to do with Joey Sturgis, a legend in his own, and that kind of helped shape the genre. Really, he's directly responsible for so many elements of what we know as MySpace deathcore today and MySpace metalcore. Yeah, to answer your question, keeping that sound, yeah, that was kind of like the North Star for the new music. Also, I had all these riffs that like I had a bunch of projects last year and in the year before of music that I was like experimenting with. And in the back of my mind, anytime I would pick up my guitar, pick up my Explorer, um, I would always play these kinds of riffs at some point just for fun. And one of the questions that we got in the Instagram comments was, what really made me want to bring TCA back? Honestly, it was I lost my software job back in September, and I had never really had the time to sit down and like actually punch out a TCA style song. It requires a little bit more effort than the other kinds of music that I was making, where there's some more deliberate thought and composition that is unique to this style of deathcore, of metal, where the structure of songs is less linear.
Yeah.
And not there's no I don't have any like thing against linear or formulaic music. I actually love that style of music too, and all the different genres that it works for. But for us, for the new music, for Guardians, one of the signatures to me was a like non-traditional song structure, and just being like very liberal with a number of riffs per song, and it was almost like a game to me to see like how many riffs can I cram into 2 or 3 minutes?
Set a new record with every song.
Yeah. So like one thing that you'll hear when you examine the 3 singles that we put out and the 2 more that are going to come out soon, is I almost never revisit a riff. Like if you want to listen to that riff again, you gotta play the song over again. But and the challenge then again is like, how do I make all these riffs fit together in a way that makes sense? And that's something that it's kind of hilarious to me as 18-year-old kids writing metal for Guardians. Somehow we did that, like successfully many times over. So to try to do it again all these years later has been a fun little challenge.
Kind of like finding that in between too, right? Like because like you were alluding to, it still needs to make sense, right? So you want it to be kind of like random or erratic or chaotic, but at the same time you want it to flow. So it's like finding that middle ground of it not just being like a soup of randomness. You still want it to be
Exactly.
like
Yeah.
you want it to be
Cohesive.
interesting, but you want it to make sense still.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Another thing to me, we were talking about a little bit off stream about that. I was impressed by the amount of time you guys have tried different things, because I would say Conviction is an album that I personally liked, and it was, in my vision, different when it came out, but it was relevant and it made sense to where I was and my taste and where the music was going and stuff like that. It's something. It's so difficult for a band to kind of go in a direction but not lose what made them special and stuff like that. So was that like ever since the beginning, something important for you to like, guys, or core, we need to keep that, but also as a musician kind of tried things over? Because from my perspective, it really seems like that. Feels like you were still diving, trying things, but keeping the core at the same time. Like, was that kind of what was happening?
Yeah. So with Conviction, um, historically, people, our fans tend to look at that album as a departure from what was our core sound. I tried my best to incorporate elements from Guardians, the ones that I liked. I tried to have some faster riffs, but the rationale behind changing the sound was one, I was kind of growing as a songwriter. That was the first record that I wrote. I did not write any of the guitars on Guardians, and I did not really contribute a ton to composition and song structure. So that was one of the reasons why Conviction sounds so different. I was learning to play guitar at the time. I was also wanting to write music that was geared so much geared a little bit more towards a live performance, where a lot of the music on Guardians is very technical and difficult to play at speed. And at the time, the rooms that we were playing, and just with where live sound technology was, and on top of that, like the difficulty of the music made it uh, challenging to create a live show that was, you know, um, did justice to the record.
Mm-hmm.
There were at our best. I feel like we did nail a good chunk of it, but writing the music on Conviction was kind of like to mix things up a little bit and reach in my opinion, a wider audience, and new fans, and experiment with new sounds. And as an artist, as a songwriter, I'm like kind of always experimenting. I'm always trying new things, and just trying to have fun.
Yeah, I feel like you guys, and again, not to jump, because I'm going all over the place right now. There's like no structure, but what I think you guys were really ahead of time is in terms of like ambience, and I'm sure Dom wants to talk about it as well. But like, I feel like you guys were ahead on that regard. It really felt big, felt huge. It was raw, but it also, the ambience was something huge. It might be why, in my perception, you guys kept something still in Conviction, because that element to me was still there. It still sounded. It was just maybe more bouncy.
I love the production on Convictions specifically. Like I know, like
Thank you.
like,
So much.
I don't know. Brian was Brian Hood, right? Was did most of the production on that one.
Yeah, he produced it. I did come in with like a lot of those ideas like sketched out. Like I said, it was my first record that I wrote. I learned how to produce before, like while I was writing that record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did he have a lot of input then in like,
Oh yeah.
Just sound wise and maybe soundscapes and stuff like that? Because sorry, I kind of cut you off, Yan, but there's
No, it's
something
fine.
to that ambience, I think, and just like making that album specifically for me, I think just sounds like huge. It sounds massive, right? Like
It does. Yeah. A big part of that is his mix. Brian Hood is an excellent engineer, and he
that was
took
early in his career too, right?
yeah, it was like 2011. It He took what I brought him and just made it bigger. Like a lot of the sounds are maybe like the same MIDI notes that I wrote, but he would expand on it and make it larger than what it was before, and really gave Conviction this kind of big, like you said, big ambient sound, on top of like a metalcore vibe that is inspired by like the old Crimson Armada. So there's like some riffs in there, but yeah, it was a really cool record, and I'm very proud of it. Um, it isn't really the direction that I want new Crimson Armada to go in.
That's what I was gonna
One,
mention because
But it makes sense,
I
I
feel
think.
I feel like we're closer to Guardians than we are Convictions
Yeah.
on the new stuff, right?
yeah, so that was deliberate. New Crimson Armada will have different influences, new influences that are not present in any old Crimson Armada, like because my tastes have just changed. But the that being said, the foundation will always be, for at least now, the new music coming out for the foreseeable future is rooted in the foundation of Guardians, and that feel of like fast, just like in your face metal, lots of riffs, and you know lots of great surprises. I think one thing that Guardians was really cool for, because of the non-traditional structure, is if you were a first-time listener, like, you would be greeted where you expected like a chorus or something, with almost like a flip. The song would flip in a different way that you didn't expect, and you're like, ooh, I didn't know that was gonna come. And um, it's what a lot of people call it, like a breath of fresh air from more traditional metal. And I think trying to capture that and ride that for the new stuff was another critical element that we wanted to incorporate and maintain.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm talking about Conviction because it was important. Because I remember back then, and I do remember that I was stoked on it, even though it was different. But I remember people being like, "Oh, it's not the same and stuff." But like, I wanted to talk to you about it because from my perspective, I was like, "Yeah, but it's still good. It just makes sense in the era that it was released as well." Like, people need to keep that in mind. Like, things are also happening as a whole in a scene. Like, these things needs to be considered. Like, you tour with certain bands, you have ideas, like your mind, like things are happening within an era. So sometimes after years, you're like, why? I don't understand. Yeah, because back then it was like that, and we were doing it in a direction like that. So I fully understand you guys now, to kind of going back to the source, because as much as I love Conviction, I won't lie, Guardian, I mean, I've listened to it quite a lot, and we keep saying that we miss that specific kind of sound, right? Like on the podcast, I think we said it like 50 billion times in reference to like the techie, cool, like fast, like unpredictable music. It's something that we were expecting with the resurgence to kind of come back, but it's not really that much. But you know what I mean? Like, there's not many bands bringing it back, probably because it's super difficult to make.
I guess that, yeah, the kind of technical, sporadic nature of what used to be more like old school style, like deathcore, metalcore. I think a lot of people are doing the sound, like the general sound of it, but not like as you were explaining, like the song structure and the unpredictableness and like
a bit chaotic.
These other elements that really are a big part of what made that sound special back in the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you see it? I guess because you were talking earlier about like you're like, it's kind of unfathomable that at 17 years old or whatever, you were writing that sort of music and it did how it did, and still enjoying that music today. Like, how different is it writing that stuff now? Because obviously, like you've now I always say, like, what like time has passed, like you have listened to more music. Maybe I think a lot of the younger bands from that era, there was a bit of the naiveness and like
youthful,
not knowing anything right. So how do you recreate that, right? Once you've grown up and you've seen different things, and now maybe you're more versed in songwriting and like all these things. I think it's hard for a lot of people to maybe tap back into that thing. How's that been for you? How different is it?
I think that's part of the magic of what made made MySpace the sound what it was. we were not, trained songwriters. We were
Mhm.
just kids that, were influenced by each other and like the music of this like music that you could only get from MySpace and like Napster and LimeWire and whatever, you know. Um, so your question was like, how do you tap back into that? Um, this is something that I've kind of just learned from writing a lot of different kinds of music is to trust your instincts. And Rick Rubin talks about in the creative act or creative way, whatever. I think it's the creative act. He
Mhm.
talks about when you approach a piece of art like a song that you are about to, I don't know, lay down a vocal on or lay down a riff. Like you can say you got a drum beat and you're going to put a riff down, or you have a song and you're about to lay down vocals. The first time you hit record, you are processing the song in real time and doing what comes naturally. And so I've learned to trust my instinct there. And I'll prepare as much as I can. I'll try and write like some patterns. If I've got something in my head, I'll try and do that. But I usually will go with whatever comes naturally quickly.
Mhm.
So both with the composition and with my vocals, like a lot of the stuff, like the first song that we did that we put out, Ancient Call. A lot of it is my first pass, and I when I went to go to do the vocals, like I got about halfway through, and then I wrote the rest of the song, and then I hit record at the beginning, and then did the entire thing in one take because it just whatever needed to go there, whatever I could get in one take was going to be, in my mind, the most natural performance I can deliver live as well.
Mhm.
This is something that I learned from just playing in like hardcore bands locally. Is that a lot of like hardcore bands they don't mess around with a ton of vocal layers or backup vocals or doubling. A lot of it
Yeah.
is just one single vocal and it sounds really cool, sounds really raw, and they leave the breaths in there. It's not properly like polished and de-essed. De-essing is, for those who don't know, a process you like a plugin you would put on a vocal chain to remove some of the harshness of the like S's and T's and stuff like that. Um, yeah, so I left it all in there, all the warts, all the fat, Um, that's been part of my process for trying to recreate some of the magic of of the MySpace sound is to let it breathe a little bit more than like say a modern record would sound. Um, yeah, I think that it's trying to find a nice balance between like the modern polished recording and the like raw sound of the MySpace days. Like that's been another cool challenge.
That's commendable though, because I think I don't know for you, but like to me, it's kind of like, because I know maybe it's a bit different for you because you deal with all the other instruments as well. But I can't help myself. Like if I've got like the pre-production track and I'm like kind of just playing it, like I'm gonna naturally just try to my brain's gonna go to try and fit parts,
Oh
and to
yeah,
try and map it
absolutely.
out without, So it's like even if you are kind of going in blind, you're never really going at it blind, right? You've got like these ideas, and sometimes it's even hard to get out of those if you've got something that's been looping in your head.
Absolutely. So I should clarify that when I say trusting your instinct and going with like kind of your first gut reaction
Mhm.
to a song, I more so mean like instead of recording it and then like re-recording it and then like doubling things or like
Yeah,
chopping
yeah.
up and like trying to
Part by
get,
part. And
yeah, doing it part by part. That's something I really stray away from anymore. I try to capture. So Ancient Call was the only one that I did do in one take. The rest of them, I've been trying like to get as as big of chunks as possible,
Mm-hmm.
so that and trying to trying to get it right on the first time,
Yeah,
because after you listen back to something, you are analyzing, your
In your
first
head.
performance.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, and this is something that I've only just learned from trial and error, is that if I record something 5 times, that the same part,
it's always the first.
I'm constantly gravitating to what I did on the first one, even if it has mistakes, even if I said the wrong word. Sometimes I'll change the lyrics after the fact,
Yeah.
because like I said the wrong word, because my ear and my like musical muscle was trying to do what came naturally.
Yeah, it
And
completely changes the meaning of the song with that one word.
Yeah.
No, I
Yeah,
gotta leave
yeah.
it in.
Yeah, sometimes it's easier to just kind of like deliver whatever you receive when you're tackling a track, than try and go back and be like, oh no, this could be tighter, this could be such and such better in one way or another.
That's hard though. You gotta learn to let go when you're doing that sort of thing. Because I think most people aren't wired that way, especially nowadays. When it comes, anyone who's got any experience recording, like that you're kind of like drilled to like go for the perfection and the good take and to chop it up and do all these things, right? And
Yeah.
it's hard to, because so much of the music we listen to is like that, and you can hear it, right? But I think we're always striving for that unattainable kind of result that we kind of see the end result of.
It is difficult to do if we're thinking about it. Like you did, I think you gave, first of all, I think you gave a good advice in general. I think it even applies outside of music. Seriously, like in a lot of forms of art, I feel like when you overdo it and you come to a point where it's it's like almost kind of robotic, because you spent so much time kind of piece by piece, every single detail, that at the end you kind of lost the essence of what you had and the energy you had in the first place. So I feel like you just gave a really good advice. I wouldn't say only to vocalists, it applies with everything, but especially vocalists. I tried personally doing little by little, and I noticed that it's never as I'm losing the pace of just going and doing the take, kind of the energy of the thing altogether, and the moment you can lose that if you go like word by, or like 2 words by 2. It's not the same. So I feel sometimes it's difficult to let go, because you heard maybe something that you're not sure about, but then you revisit it and you're like, wow, that's actually, it makes it's pretty cool. So trusting your instinct.
Sometimes what makes it cool, yeah.
Yes, but sometimes it's difficult to let go, because you're like, your brain is just like, I want to make it like perfect. But sometimes the imperfection is what makes the part cool. So I think you just gave like a really, it's not easy to do, but I think it's a really good advice overall in a lot of art form. I just wanted to commend you on that. I think it's a good advice.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. That's something that I've learned just like through trial and error. And then when I heard Rick Rubin talk about it on The Creative Act, I was like, oh, he's kind of synthesized this into like this experience that I've had like into words. And it makes so much sense to me. It really speaks to me. And like, I want to go back and say, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with, like a highly produced piece of music. Like, I still really like that too. I just personally lately, I've been gravitating to music that is more raw, and that probably comes from going to hardcore shows, like the hardcore scene here in Columbus, and like listening to hardcore bands. Like, it's been really inspiring to hear music that is got so much human element in it. You feel that, and I don't know, it makes me look at music in a completely different way. It's given it like another a fresh way to listen.
Makes it, yeah. I think you're right. I think they both have their place, right? Like, we all listen.
Absolutely.
Like we often talk about other music. I love very different kind of thing. Like, I talk about pop punk all the time, which is like completely somewhere else. But like,
Yeah.
yeah, that music seriously makes sense that it's produced in a certain way. You're like ear wise, like I heard both, and in that specific space, it makes sense to be produced like that. So I feel like it always depends basically on the vibes you're going for, especially in hardcore. I don't think it would make more sense, a lot of sense, to go further from rawness and just like go somewhere else.
We've had examples over the years, and to me, it's always been weird, you know. But
there's a lot of culture, especially hardcore. I feel like it's such like a cult, like a culture, like it's sort of like there's, I wouldn't say rules, but it's like it's there's an energy to it. So I fully understand what you mean, and
it's
not
got
to
to serve the song ultimately.
Exactly.
You know? Whatever you're doing, it's got to serve the song.
Exactly. And we have this conversation a lot about deathcore. We keep bringing up, for example, The Cleansing, which was recording in like, you know, all together. It's so good. Like you feel the energy, and like, obviously we keep talking about Mitch and stuff like that, but it's just, this album is a really good example of good quality, pure rawness together, and it creates something really special.
Just a quick second to talk about the sponsors of today's episode, Indie Merch Store. So they're currently sponsoring two separate tours that I'm going to talk about real quick. The first one being Angel Maker headlining the Level Up tour featuring Humanity's Last Breath, Psycho Frame, and The Gloom in the Corner. Tickets and VIP are on sale now. VIPs include a ton of great merch and incentives, and you can win a $500 gift card to Indie Merch Store. The other tour is Rivers of Nile. They're doing their headlining tour, the Aggressive Progressive Tour, featuring Holy Dawn, Inter Arma, and Glacial Tomb. Tickets and VIPs are on sale now. It includes meet and greets and killer merch items. You can snag merch from Rivers of Nile at indiemerchstore.com. With all that, we do have a code that you guys can use if you guys want to use code Brutality for 10% off at checkout. That is something you guys can do, and it helps support the show. So again, code Brutality at checkout on indiemerchstore.com. Thanks again to Indie Merch for sponsoring the show. Now back to the episode.
I would be curious. I don't know. I don't want to like screw up like the conversation.
You don't gotta ask permission, my man.
No, but it's like what I would be curious is like go back in time and just know kind of ask how it was for you, because like your band, like it really, from an outside perspective, really blew up, and you know, you were, you know, tours and stuff like that. So like if we go back in time, I would just be curious to know. You don't have to explain maybe all the story, but like how it kind of started, and what was the moment of like, oh my God, this thing is gonna, you know what I mean? Like, oh my God, like it's starting to resonate with people. Or maybe it's too far in your mind. I don't know, but
no, that's okay. Yeah, we can time travel a little bit. So let's go back to about 2007, 2008. Around this time, on MySpace, you log on after you get back from school. You log into AOL Instant Messenger, and you take your away message down. Yep. That had some lyrics from some band. Maybe it was I don't know, Whitechapel. Maybe it was Job for a Cowboy.
It was probably something really emo, but yeah.
Don't Take Back Sunday. Or Fall Out Boy.
You're a kid, you have no responsibility, but yet your life is so difficult.
Yeah. So around this time, you know, we were in high school, and your question was, if I heard you correctly, you know, when was the moment that we realized that this was becoming something?
Yeah.
You know, when we were playing shows, it was something we always wanted, you know, to go on tour and play big shows, and, you know, share our music and do it for a living. That was a dream when we were kids. The moment, it wasn't like, you know, an overnight thing. Over like maybe a year and a half, we played a bunch of local shows. We got to open up for some really cool bands. We got to open up for the Black Dahlia Murder as a local band. Mm-hmm. That one was really pivotal to when I got to talk to Trevor, and he was like, bro, he dapped me up and he was like, you got sick vocals. I was like, ooh. You know, like
because he knows.
Yeah, absolutely. Trevor was like, I think my biggest inspiration vocally. And I just loved the sound, and do still love the sound of the Black Dahlia Murder. Shout out Black Dahlia Murder and their new
Rest in
album.
power.
Yeah,
Yep.
and rest in power.
Still influential. I just
Trevor.
want to say that he's still influencing ton of people. Like right now, still
Yeah,
like super relevant and so just shout out.
absolutely. Yeah, so we got to open up like a bunch of really great shows. And then one day, we got a message from, I think it was Michael Faley from Metal Blade Records. And it's really funny that when we were talking about labels like to send our demo to, Metal Blade was one that we deliberately were like, nah, they're not gonna sign us. There's no way. I was definitely skeptical of that entirely, and when we got a message back, I just remember thinking like, oh my god, Metal Blade Records has heard our demo and
We didn't
sent
send
us
it
a
to them.
message.
Insane.
Yeah. So that was kind of the moment where I was like, oh my God, Mom, we made it.
Yep.
I'm gonna be rich.
If I remember
Let's buy
correctly
a house.
in the like if I remember correctly in the like press release or whatever, or I was looking through like the old MySpace page and stuff, and there was like it was something to the tune of like Metal Blades was like the label that you guys would have wanted to be on type thing. But it's funny to hear you now say like we didn't even send our thing because we thought that would never be a possibility. Type
Yeah. Yeah. So it's crazy to have gotten that message back. And
Was huge, by the way. Like for people maybe younger, whatever, watching or don't know the context, Metal Blade was like one of the label you wanted. I mean, we're talking. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we're talking like Job for a Cowboy, Whitechapel, like huge freaking good label with great videos and everything. For a band, it was kind of a dream. But I can see how maybe for you guys, like, do we fit Metal Blade? Like it's a different style.
we honestly were like, we thought it was a scam at first. When we got the message, I was like, I was looking at this profile on MySpace. I was like, this is not for real. There's no way. There's no way. There's no way. So,
send me a picture of your ID real quick.
Exactly. Yep.
I don't remember the exact message we sent back, but like, I think there might have been something along that lines of like, like, can you email us or something? Like,
Or
something
back then it would have been like take a picture, with a note that says like, yes, I'm real, Crimson Armada or whatever, something that couldn't be faked.
Yeah. So, yeah, I would say that was the moment. And then when we got like when we got an email
Sturgis
with
right there, right?
a record deal, soon we were going to Joey Sturgis, the same producer that at the time, I think, I don't know if he did Miss May I before us or after us, but it was right around the same time.
Probably close, yeah. Probably.
Yeah. Within a year, plus minus 1 year, and he had just done Attack before us, which were friends of ours. We grew up in the same zip code and played local shows together, and so to be like kind of part of this really special thing. I think that was the moment when I was like, it started to become a reality to me. Like, oh, maybe we can actually do this.
That's so freaking cool. Okay, can I ask you, by the way, how was the experience being in Joey? Because like we would see all these studio updates. You remember that? Like Ben's, like everybody would do like studio updates with Joey Sturgis and stuff. Like how was your experience as a band with him? Because I don't know if you did. Like I know most of the time bands would like kind of stay there like a couple of days fully there with him. Like how was it for you guys to record with him?
Oh, it was very cool. Joey is an awesome guy, and we recently reconnected, and he he had done a guest vocal on the latest Crimson Armada track, Man and Beast. Joey is, and it's really cool that he's still the same guy he was back then, just this mad scientist with
He hasn't changed
vision.
his look either. He literally is the same.
He looks
person.
clean now. He looks clean. You know, he has maintained this classic Joey Sturgis look, and he's just even cleaner now. You know, he looks great. The experience was surreal to watch how to engineer a hit record. You know, to see it in real time. I'm not trying to like toot our own horn. Like, we obviously thought our music was special. We thought it was great, and I think every band should. You think that. If you don't think that what you're creating is, if it doesn't blow your own mind, you need to try harder, and so to watch what we brought him, and then to see how he turned it into what it is now, a record that has withstood, over a decade, and held a place in the hearts of so many people still today. It still kind of blows my mind. That experience of watching him engineer the record was amazing. I learned a lot. I was talking with my friend Paul today, who he tour manages Bill Murray. And we were talking about
so
how
sick, by the way, sick. I just wanted, sorry, but like I'm actually a fan of Bill Murray. I think it's so awesome.
Same.
It's incredible.
American Motorsports is like one of the best records I've heard of the last 10 years.
Incredible.
And such a really cool fusion of sounds. It really inspired me to watch what Johnny has done. And,
so good live too. I mean, with all the instrument and everything, it's incredible. I mean, like really top tier music. So while we were on the topic, I was like, I need to sell.
Absolutely,
how sick it is.
Huge shout out to Johnny and Bill Murray and the whole team there. They're amazing. They're truly remarkable in so many ways. So yeah, I was talking to Paul about because he's in a band called Wise Man's Fear. Shout out Wise Man's. And they're going to record with somebody, I think his name's Lee, who learned production from Johnny. And Paul was joking about how since he learned from Johnny and Johnny learned from Joey, that this guy Lee is like third generation Joey producer. And he's talking to me as like I'm second generation of like people who learned from watching Joey. Just like watching somebody who operates on in my opinion, on a frequency and a level of creativity that comes from a higher place. It's hard
on that topic. Sorry to cut you off, but because I was going through a bunch of stuff earlier, and I think Brian Hood, who did your second record, he's second gen because he did so many records that Joey did like a record before. Like you guys did obviously, Joey and then him, but A Plea for Purging did the same thing as well. Did Joey Sturgis and then Hood. My Children, My Bride, obviously, right? Like, did
that's right.
Joey Sturgis, and then he became that, right? So it's like, it's just funny on the topic of generations of past Joey Sturgis,
Yeah. Everyone that has gotten a chance to work with Joey Sturgis or be in the room to observe it by like osmosis, you learn things about producing music, about songwriting, and I owe Joey so much. And I think MySpace, deathcore, and metalcore we owe Joey Sturgis big time.
Dude,
he's like he's like the
I'm
living
sure he's
legend.
getting some good checks, but he should be getting more.
Yeah. No, but you should see the amount. I don't even know how to bring it up anymore because I'm doing videos on, I'm definitely going to have to make one about the Crimson Armada, by the way, but like I'm documenting like stories of bands in general from like, on YouTube. So I'm telling basically the stories of the band, and I cannot the amount of time that I'm bringing up Joey Sturgis, I don't even know which picture to make to include anymore. Like he's so in every single video. Every time it's around like 2008, 2009, whatever in that era, I'm like, So then they went to record with Joey Sturgis. I don't know. And then every time I'm like, he's responsible for most of this. I'm like, oh my God, I repeat myself so often. But the amount of people, if you're curious, by the way, just write Joey Sturgis records. It's insane the amount of
Yeah,
records that he
he's
put.
got some credits, bro.
Unbelievable. Like we're talking like so many classic. You mentioned Miss May I, all those bands. It's insane the amount of bands that he produced. It's not even humanly possible. It's insane.
Yeah, Oceano, another big one. Like a
Yes.
huge,
People
another
don't
like
know that he did
iconic,
Depths. I know,
Yeah.
dude.
iconic record. Shout out Oceano. Shout out Adam. Um, that
Insane
record is like still one of my favorites.
Incredible.
I love pumping that one whenever I'm working out, dude.
Still as good too. Like it really
Yeah.
over time, it's still it's kind of timeless in that regard. And would you say, Joey? Another question. Would you say each member of the band was he kind of not challenging you guys, but like kind of pushing you in a certain way?
Oh,
Like
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, we we took the Guardians record after we worked with him, and we drilled things so hard. We rehearsed a ton because like he showed us like what this is supposed to sound like, and so then the challenge for us was recreating that. And it was really hard. You know, our drummer David Puckett, who now plays in We Car. Shout out David.
Yeah.
So we lived together at the time, and he would every day in the morning, like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the morning, he was running the set. He forced us to be better musicians, better producers, and like just held us to a higher standard and showed us how it's done. And one thing that I learned from him that I didn't really like wasn't really like able to apply, I would say, until like more recent years of producing, and like towards the end of because I took a long break, towards the end of that, and then again now, is going back to what I said earlier, is trusting your instincts. Joey is really good at being decisive.
Yeah.
This is a guy who knows how to trust his instincts, knows the subject matter really well too, and just makes really strong decisions, strong mix decisions, strong composition decisions, and knowing in his head like what this needs to be, and not stopping until he gets there.
Just knowing like what the good takes are, like not having to bullshit around it. Like, no, that's the one. That's not the one. Okay, redo this, redo that.
Yeah, strong vision is something that this guy has
Instinct
got.
and
Instinct and vision. I think those kind of go hand in hand, and I didn't really. I observed it then, and I've over the years have kind of been able to internalize that and realize that's what it was.
Okay.
And I think anybody can have that.
Yeah, you need to tap in, right? Do you remember? I know it might be a while ago, but do you remember if for you personally it was more of an excitement? Was there like a little kind of, because I would understand if you're like, yeah, I was a bit intimidated to record with him, but do you remember if it was mostly excitement or there was a bit of nervous, like when you were doing your takes and everything?
Joey is such a great producer and friend, and just like person to be around. He did not make us feel like, we were kids to him. We were kids. But he didn't treat us like children or anything. Like we were like 18, 19, 20. Really, honestly, we were probably pretty annoying. But
Like most bands, probably.
but Joey's just such a great hang. So it didn't feel, we were having fun. We were having a ton of fun.
Awesome. Probably came out on the record. It might be one of the reasons why the energy is so, you know what I mean? Like that, it contributes. Like if you're all having fun, and it's like you won't record the same way, right? As if you're like just stressed and just like, oh my God, it's not the same, feeling at all. So I'm glad to hear that. But shout out Joey. I don't even understand how you managed to produce like one of those albums would be awesome that he did one. He made hundreds of like just
Yeah.
incredible album. I could make a playlist seriously that would be good with only what he did.
Those
Like,
those probably exist for
I'm
what
sure
it's worth. Yeah,
Joey
yeah.
Sturgis core or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How
needs-
was it doing getting him to do the track recently?
Oh,
That's kind
so
of like
cool.
full circle, right? That's
Yeah.
like you, because you mentioned you kind of reconnected recently. So, how'd that all kind of come about?
Yeah, so Joey was recording, and now I can actually talk about this. Joey was recording the band Face Yourself. Shout out Face Yourself.
There we
Thomas
go. Hell
and
yeah.
Eric and the whole gang there. They just dropped and oh my goodness,
It's so
dude.
good.
Oh
It's
my
so sick.
God, the new Face Yourself is so sick, dude. So he was recording that at the time.
Convenient timing, yeah, because it came out like 2 days ago. Yeah.
Yeah, he was recording that, and I remember he told me he was going to be in town in Columbus recording it. Columbus is kind of like a central point for the band. I think they're from Jersey or New York, somewhere
around
on
there,
on the East Coast. So he was like, "Yeah, I'm going to be in town recording this record. We should get dinner or something." And so I was like, I'd love that. So we stopped by the studio and hung out, and we went out to get food. And I brought my engineer Jacob with me. Jacob Mooney, shout out Jacob. He's been doing all the new Crimson Armada stuff. Jacob walks up to Joey and has his phone out like this. And he's like, "Yeah, so this is the new Crimson Armada song we're working on." And he asks Joey Sturgis, like dead ass, like, "Dude, do you want to do guest vocals? You want to be on our song?" And Jacob's a couple years younger than me, and just like, I was like, "Bro, did you just ask the greatest, like the metal producer of all time, if you wanted to do guest vocals on our record while we're eating lunch? And it was the first time you met him." And Joey's such a G. He was just like, "I'd love to do that." Because he did a feature on the first Guardians record.
Yeah.
He's done a couple like secret features for bands and stuff. And I was like,
Because it is random, right? Like
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
not like he's a vocalist, that's not
exactly.
like his thing.
It's kind of a flex feature,
Yeah.
just to say like, this guy he's not even, those vocals are insane. Like in the room when you hear it, he really like like just lets loose. He gives it 100%. The way he screams is the way like he produces a record, where it's just like so intense, Yeah, so Jacob asked if he would want to do that feature, and I was like, oh my God. But of course, yeah, Joey says yeah, and we set up a time to do it, and he's on a break from recording the Face Yourself stuff. We brought in the track and stopped by Avant Studio. It's owned by my buddy Gino. Shout out to Gino. Him and Matthew, his another engineer that works with Gino. They we filmed and recorded at Avant Studio this feature for Crimson Armada with Joey Sturgis on it. It's still crazy to say out loud.
It came out cool, and that video you guys posted too, of like kind of like
Yeah, I saw
walking him
that.
through what it was supposed to, what you guys were trying to evoke, and then him going into it. I found that
Yeah.
super cool.
Oh, that's cool,
Yeah.
man. As Dom, you said, like it's kind of a full circle thing, right? Like after all those years, it's
Well, so I think that kind of taps into some of the, and I know like, based on the story you just told us, like obviously it wasn't like a planned thing, right? But I think there are like a lot of things very evocative of like of Guardians, right? Like there are like these very strong callbacks. I think that feature is one of them, right? But it wasn't planned. It wasn't intended to like manufactured to be that way. But there's just, I think, a few things like that. Like, I mean, like the opening riff for, well, it comes back later on too, but the opening riff for Revelations 2, right? That song as a whole is like such a callback, to Guardians and to the
Absolutely.
original song too. So I don't know. I think it's cool that like, because I think we see a lot of people that are maybe, there's like different ways of looking at it. Like some people would be fed up of hearing about their old record that they wrote when they were 17, right? Like some people
Mm-hmm.
just, they're like, no, I've moved on as a musician. I'm better now. Or I don't know. There's
They
like some sort
almost
of
hate it
ego about it. Yeah.
sometimes.
They have a hard time re-listening to it. And I feel with you guys, it's just been like fully like leaning into it. And I don't know, it's a rare thing. It's really cool to see. And you alluded to, people still, enjoying that early record so much and stuff. Like what were kind of some of those moments for you? I know you guys did the vinyl. Like was that like was it kind of like off the radar for a while, and then once you guys put out the vinyl, maybe you kind of saw that it was actually selling, people were hyped and were kind of like, oh wait, like people still care type of thing? Or have you just
Absolutely.
kind of had that feeling the whole time?
Yeah. So Spencer from Deathly Decibel Records, shout out to Spencer. He's the one that was responsible for pressing the Guardians vinyl. He got the rights. He did a lot of the back end work for that. He approached me about doing this, and I was like, "Yeah, go for it." He told me he'd cut us in on a cut of the sales. I honestly wasn't expecting that much. At the time, um, Crimson Armada didn't really have that many Spotify listeners, and I would get a message, maybe like one message a month on Instagram from people like saying like, "Oh man, I loved, Crimson Armada." Maybe not once a month, maybe once every couple of months. So I didn't really think too much of it at the time. And then seeing that it sold out in like an hour, I was like, "Whoa!" One, people are still buying vinyl, and two,
Yeah,
people
yeah.
are still listening to Crimson Armada in 2024. What? That's wild. And from there, that kind of, I would say that was the catalyst for the revival, and seeing that there's still a lot of strong interest in the band, and hearing the word MySpace again, seeing like bands trying to revive this style of music from the archives, from the depths of the internet. And I was like, well, I knew that to produce a song like that did the sound justice and that did Crimson Armada justice would require more than just like it would require like deliberate thought and effort.
Yeah.
Um, and I hadn't really had, while I was working full time, I didn't really have the mental bandwidth to try and tackle that. So yeah, when I lost my job and I had done a couple of other music projects alongside. I had a punk project, and I had another like kind of slam deathcore band, like down tuned like slam. Those projects are a lot easier to produce and don't really require the technical riffage that
Yeah.
TCA does. So all those factors combined, seeing that people, there was still a demand for this, having these riffs on hand, and you know the question, what if I wrote a Crimson Armada song and just cold dropped it and didn't tell anybody?
Hmm.
Let's just see how it does. Let's just play it and experiment. I like to think about all my kind of musical endeavors as an experiment. I'm just trying to see like what happens.
Social
um
experiments.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm actually gonna do another one next week. And we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I've been working on some different music on the side. I've also been working on new TCA, which is the next song that we're about to release. Um, is it's got the core elements that make TCA what it is, but it also incorporates a lot of my newer influences. The next set of songs incorporate sounds that I haven't really been able to use in other projects or old TCA music. Influences like from thrash metal,
Hmm.
like Metallica, Slayer, um, and my influence from spending time in the hardcore scene, uh, using um, beats and feels from hardcore music like beatdown, um, and slam. So these are like some new elements that fans can expect in the upcoming TCA songs that will kind of be merged and melded with the the classic TCA sound. So I'm excited to get those out, and we'll see how it goes
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it'll be it's kind of a new
See how,
thing.
yeah. See how the people react. The social experiment.
Yeah,
Go.
Well,
I,
it was cool. Sorry, it
no,
was
go for it.
cool to see though. Like I was reading the comments and everything, when I heard the songs, and people are just super stoked, man. Like the reaction seriously is just like very positive because when you come, like as we we were talking about that before, but it's kind of intimidating to come back after like a long time, and it's rare that personally and for a lot of people you hear something again and you're like, oh, I like it. Like a lot of the times it's just like, oh, okay, it's something different, whatever. But like I was reading the comments as I was listening to the song, and I saw a lot of comments of like, oh my god, like they're still as sick as it was. But it's like if you just picked it up with like, of course, new stuff, but like how was that for you to like kind of read that and to like you said, it's an experiment, but like what I'm guessing it was like a wholesome moment to realize that it actually worked very well, right?
yeah, it was great. It was really cool to drop it cold without any
Yeah.
warning,
Yeah.
and no expectations. It kind of just came out of nowhere, and um, something that I've been trying to do on in all my music is um, not play it safe when it comes to just about everything, sound wise, composition, production. I I feel like something that modern music is suffering from is uh, um, it's suffering from being too careful, and not experimenting more, and being a little bit too predictable. I think that music like that does have a place, but to me, to be what made part of what made TCA so the record timeless is like kind of the unpredictability, and a way for me to tap back into that, this like coming back to it this time around, is to just be as reckless as I can, and not try and use like the formula.
Mhm.
No,
Or
I
try to
get.
be a certain thing. Or
Yeah, I get what you
Yeah,
mean.
or
There's a lot of
try and
rules or kind
yeah,
of
or
made up
just
rules. But
another thing that's kind of cool in deathcore is the just the ridiculous vocal, this extremely low gurgly, and the goblin like high, and all, like it's almost like a contest of like who can make the craziest sound. I decided like, I'm never gonna be Will Ramos. I'm never going to be Kyle from Brand of Sacrifice, or Yaz from Face Yourself, or Taylor from Left to Suffer. Like these these vocalists are incredible in their own right. Um, and they're creating sounds that, I don't know. I've tried to do that. It does not come out sounding as cool as the way they do it. So I was just like, I'm going to experiment in other ways. I'm going to do what doesn't feel safe for me, what makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable, and
Mhm.
makes me kind of like step out of my comfort zone. I
Because
feel like,
you've got some different stuff on the new songs compared to
yeah,
before, or
um,
even the Holy Guile. Like even since then, because it has been 10 years, right? Like
yeah,
between the two. So like, were you still doing vocals in between, or were you picking that
no.
back up and then praying it still works
Yeah,
type thing?
I picked up doing vocals again in my slam band, ear to ear, and I was trying to
Yeah.
go for like a more like beat down kind of hardcore sound.
Mhm.
And I think through experimentation, I realized that that wasn't really my strong suit. Something I can do, but it was also like really hard on my voice, um, because at least the way that I liked those vocals to sound coming from me, the proper technique was not producing the sound that I wanted. It sounded too, I don't know, too safe. It was not, it did not capture the emotion and the intensity that I wanted. So when it came to like recording new TCA music, I really try and put my entire body into capturing the performance. Like something else that I've been doing differently, like in recording music recently, is I never sit down anymore.
I was gonna say
Um,
like your videos are all standing up. You know
I'm always
the
standing
clips
up.
you've been put up.
I feel like when I'm writing a riff, if I don't feel good playing it standing up, it's probably not going to be very cool live anyway. Um, and so far, I feel like a lot of the music is translating pretty well. Um, we've as moving into the present day TCA, I have found guitar players, and like they're picking things up pretty quickly and commenting on how this riff is really fun to play, and adopting the stand up and play methodology. I don't know if you want to call it that.
Practicing not on a chair. Yeah.
Yeah. And the same goes with my vocals. Like I'm always like I'm holding the mic always.
Yeah.
I never put it on a stand, and I always stand up, and like I always like hunch down like I'm about to do the vocals in real life. Like I try and put my entire body into it. Like and to make sure that I capture like the best performance, like as if I was gonna do this live, and make sure that the emotion gets embedded in the sound that gets recorded to the record.
Because that's
Does
what's
make
always
sense,
hard.
though.
It's the translating what you would have wanted to do live in a studio setting. It's always like the thing that people are after. You know, how to make it sound like you were at a show, but it's a good recording at the same time, right? How do you recreate that sort of environment?
Yeah, I think a lot of for at least for me, executing that comes from planning the ideas, not overthinking them, and trying to execute them right on the first try, or with as few tries needed as possible, to prevent any overthinking, overanalysis, and yeah, anything like that.
It does make sense, though. We were talking about energies of a record and stuff like that. Everything that you were discussing, and just kind of, you're moving, you're placing yourself in a certain way. Even though maybe to some people you're like, well, it's recorded, it does play a role in terms of like how you're going to feel it and the energy that's going to be displayed in the vocals. So I actually do believe that it makes a huge difference. I experimented it myself, seriously, like many times. Like I used to seriously sit down and just like kind of just like try to do, like, it's never the same thing as if I'm into it and I'm listening to it. It's completely different in terms of sound. So it might be just an overall good advice. I can not to say that it's not doable. I'm sure both are doable, but in terms of energy and rawness, like I might be just like a good advice to really feel, even maybe when you're writing it, right? So it's cool. It's cool to hear that, definitely, especially for you who know what it's like to be live, and the energy and everything. We talked about that. So you have a different, maybe someone who never performed. It might be a bit different, but when you experimented it, what it is. I'm sure you can feel when it's right or when it's not for the band.
Yeah, I think something that we don't often think about as songwriters is breathing room, both
Yeah.
both in vocals,
Guilty as charged.
both
Yeah.
both in the vocals and in the song
Yeah.
itself. Like the song should be constantly like inhaling and exhaling, and like building in tension and releasing tension, and I think part of what makes really great recordings, really great songs, really great performances, um, is getting that balance right. And it all comes back to trusting your instincts. Because, like, you, right now, we're all breathing, we're not thinking about it, right? We just do it. And applying that mindset to your music, you know, I think that's a kind of like a secret sauce that makes a good song versus a great song.
Yeah, I think you have a good point too. I feel like maybe as a vocalist, also you feel like put a lot of vocals type. You feel like you have to do that to kind of match it. But sometimes, seriously, just like leaving a little space and then coming back, it might serve the song way in a way better and kind of you shine lights more on other instruments sometimes and stuff like that. So it's definitely, it's probably something that a lot of vocalists struggle with, right? They want to like fill the song with everything, but like they don't leave space to breathe or anything. So then they go live and they're just like, oh my god, I'm about to, like, I cannot breathe, I need to do all of that. That's a good point, actually. Probably happens a lot.
I'd love to maybe tap into maybe one last kind of broader subject before talking about what anything else that you've got currently going on. I know you do. You've got Lucky Shot as well and stuff like that. I'd love to pick your brain on that for a second, but I'd love to kind of switch gears and talk about the Crimson Armada. Back in the day, and I guess the Christian deathcore scene and Christian metalcore scene, and what that was like for you guys, because I feel like outside looking in, people knew you guys were like a Christian band, but it wasn't super like out there. Like I was reading through like old MySpace pages and stuff, and it wasn't like super. You guys weren't pushing it up in anyone's faces, right? I think it was always kind of just maybe through the lyrical content, perhaps, but even at that, but I always like to talk about this particular subject when we have the opportunity, because I feel like, especially when it came to deathcore, there were so little, like, it was kind of like an oxymoron, being a Christian band, but then doing deathcore. Like there were a few bands doing it, but not that many. And then obviously you guys aired on the side of metalcore as well, and there were definitely more of those back then. Sure. But how was that for you guys in navigating that? And you guys toured with a lot of other Christian bands and did Scream the Prayer and stuff like that. But how was that whole experience for you? Because I know things may have changed past the band and all that, but I don't know, it's a complex topic, but I'd love to kind of pick your brain on all that.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a really important topic. I'll try my best to hit everything that you said. First, I do want to clarify that TCA was never a Christian band. Like, we never used that label. I personally am not a Christian. I'm a Muslim. And so but there's no genre for Muslim metal, dude. Like that doesn't exist. And at the time, back in the days of MySpace, the Christian metal scene was the closest analog for me, as somebody who grew up with like really strong religious roots in Islam, really strong spiritual roots. So I was heavily influenced by that, and I think there's a lot of crossover with the Christian metal community. So that is where we got naturally just lumped in. And I'm really grateful for that, because we met incredible musicians and got to do super cool things like play Cornerstone. We got to tour with bands like A Plea for Purging and For Today, which David Puckett went on to play drums for. We got to tour with Maylene and the Sons of Disaster. Like, how cool is that? That's so cool.
So sick, yeah.
We also made friends with bands like In the Midst of Lions, who were just like awesome.
Those are my goats. God, I love that
Yeah.
band,
Oh,
dude.
they were so good. I think Ryan
Hmm.
played for today at one point, or Sam, maybe one of the guys from those bands.
Hmm.
Um,
Today was huge too. You just want
for
to
today was
for
amazing,
yeah,
and
for
yeah,
context, and I just want to say also they were really unique. You know what I mean? Like it was for today, their sound, their thing, and it was for a while. I could be wrong, but I mean they were one of the biggest freaking bands in this scene for a while. Their videos and
Hmm.
everything, Fearless and all that stuff. It was an insane era. I just wanted to
yeah,
chime in. Like I was a huge fan of them.
yeah. Shout out for today. They were incredible. Their last record, um, oh man, that one song, "No Truth, No Sacrifice," that thing slams. Maddie was such a great vocalist. David was
The call
incredible.
outs, the
Oh
call
my
Yeah,
outs is what made
god.
that band. It was just
Yeah.
like, look, as a non-religious dude, I was fucking with the call outs. I was like, hey,
oh yeah,
I'm
same.
Christian for a second. Hold up here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I always saw like for today as kind of the anger of God or something. Like he
yeah,
sounded so angry. It was like the punishment or I don't know what. Like they sounded like the war, the weapon of God or something. It was a different.
yeah.
It was a cool energy. Definitely, you could feel it.
I would say that TCA kind of identified with the spirit of For Today in that lyrically and as a band, it is, and that's kind of where it ties into the message of TCA's music today, is to serve kind of as a wake up call, to remind people that like your spiritual health is something that you have to consider in some way, shape, or form. Um, it influences your life, whether or not you consider yourself a religious person or not. You know, answers, maybe not having a proper answer to the question, where did we come from? Where are we going? You know, but to understand that we are all connected in a very deeply complex and profound way that it exceeds our understanding. And I think that is really the essence of the spiritual message of Crimson Armada and religion, um, as a whole. Um, to me, that's kind of what I've been gravitating towards. The lyrical content of Crimson Armada is more on the spiritual side than the religious side. Although being growing up religious and like having coming from a religious background and being a practicing Muslim, these things are obviously strong influences and tend to come out in one way,
Right.
shape, or
It
form.
seeps into what you do and
Yeah,
the way you see things and all that, of course.
yeah, I do try my best to keep the message as universal as possible while also not beating around the bush, I want to say.
Hmm.
So there's a balance. Like, I'm definitely not trying to evangelize anybody. Um, I would say that's where I probably differentiate myself from modern religions. Maybe at least the big three monotheistic religions that I do not feel compelled to make people believe what I believe.
Hmm.
To me, the most important thing, um, in terms of spirituality and the message that I want to share with people, is to understand that we are connected. And you can call that whatever you want. You can call it God, you can call it the universe, but it is something you have to acknowledge. And I think that if we understood this and kept this kind of in front of our faces, it would probably solve a lot of the issues that we see in the world today.
Hmm.
Oh my god. Yeah.
I think at the core of I'm not going to get into like politics or anything, but a lot of the problem with the root problem with a lot of things going on in the world is really a disconnect from our spirituality. We would not be doing the things as a country, to each other, and just like globally, if we were more connected spiritually. and
Couldn't agree
understand.
more, by the way. I really, because don't know, I keep talking about these things. I bring that up a lot. Like I always mention that I'm spiritual and stuff like that. And you're 100% right, because, not to get too deep into it, but I just want to
No,
say,
let's get deep.
like,
Let's go.
it
Let's go in.
it pains me a little bit when I go, for example, in a place, on Instagram, for example, and I see people believing in the same kind of things, fighting over words and perception. I'm like, you're dividing yourself. And that's the total opposite that you should be doing. Like, at the end of the day, you can think about it for years if you want, but you circle and you always get, as simple as it sounds, as you said, we're all connected, but we're also all the same. And people are fighting to say we're not. We are. Like, we're all humans in different kinds of, like, sure, we have, different thinkings and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, like, being divided, I don't think it does any good. And fighting
Absolutely.
over if what you think is better for somebody, like, people are fighting, trying to, and to me, it's the opposite than what we should be doing at the end, right? It's just like, we should just vibe, and as much, you said it perfectly, by the way. Like, it doesn't, not that it doesn't matter, but like, you can call it what you want. It could be spirituality, it could be a specific religion and stuff like that. But the message is similar in terms of, like, it's supposed to be about love and being together. That's what it's supposed to be. So when you see a lot of division, to me, I'm just like, that's that's the opposite of any message. We shouldn't be fighting. And again, maybe it comes from me, who's like super dreamer, idealistic type of person, who's like, no war, we're all together. I'm that person, so I'm fully aware that it's not realistic in the world. But I don't know about you, but sometimes it's just, I see these people fighting, and I'm like, you guys literally believes in this. Sometimes it's really, they're fighting, they're talking about the same thing but in different words, and I'm like, I don't feel like the division is doing any good. So I just wanted to say that being together more, we would benefit from that. Should be about
Absolutely.
love. So
100%. Yeah, I think there's so many, you can choose any way you want to divide people up, and I don't want to say that. I think that differences are what make humanity
for
so
sure,
beautiful. It's
for sure.
all the different colors and different ways of being, and new ways that become synthesized over time. The way that language evolves. It's kind of amazing in a way, to observe over time, just in our short lives, like how language has changed, how the world has changed. Like, the differences are definitely like important, and we should celebrate them instead
I
of
Yeah.
choosing to, you know, to create delineation and um yeah, and separate each other. Like this, it doesn't serve humanity to do that.
No,
Feels like an
it's
ego thing to me, always, like the
Mm.
my way is better than yours type thing, or I should tell you how to live your life type of thing. Like it always to me feels like it comes from a point of ego. Like there's someone
Yeah,
who doesn't have an ego would not give a shit how you live your life, and try to
yeah.
impose their own thinking, right?
Unfortunately, a lot of religion like traditional religion is a culprit here,
Mhm.
in that, like, going back to what I was saying about evangelizing. I think that, I could be mistaken about this, but the three main monotheistic religions in the U.S., Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, they're all evangelizing religions, if I'm not mistaken. And so within that, there is this inherent um, sense of superiority, that, like, I need you to think the way I think. We need to be uniform in this way. And that's something that I just personally disagree with. I think that at the, like, there's, obviously there's so many different faiths and so many different religions, and there's just, I cannot prove my way over yours. So why invest energy into bashing you over the head with that? It doesn't serve me. It doesn't help me connect with you. In my opinion, it doesn't make the world a better place.
That's kind of what I was alluding to earlier too, though. I mean, like I said, I was going through like the early MySpace pages of yours, and it never felt that way, right? And because I'm also, we're getting your perspective right now, but there were other members in the band, I'm sure, that maybe had varying opinions and various ways of thinking about it. But I think as a whole, the band never felt like some bands you could tell were very preachy in a, we want to change people type of way, and you guys never really came off that way, right? For me personally, who's never been religious, that allowed me to be able to tap in with the band still, right? Whereas some other bands maybe would have turned me off from some other ways of trying to impose their vision on me, even if the music was good ultimately, right?
Yeah, that's, I think the perfect word is like, I back then we agreed we never wanted to impose our beliefs on other people. And I think that imposing by nature repels people.
Yeah.
It's like even if I'm right about what I'm telling you, say it's not something about religion. If I'm telling you, hey, you need to do it this way, you need to do it this way. Like we have this, I think, inherent human feeling to kind of rebel and reject being.
It's childish, but it's the way we are.
It's
like mom telling you not to do something.
Yeah, it is true though. It is true. It's gonna do the complete opposite thing. It's gonna be like, oh yeah, people actually get mad, right? They're upset by it. They're kind of fighting. It's the complete opposite. Like I feel, I could be wrong, right? But I feel. I wouldn't say leading because it sounds superior. I was about to say leading by example, but what I mean is just maybe just being what you preach sometimes does more good than just like constantly saying you need to do it. Just maybe be and have genuine conversation that it's a back and forth. I feel like a lot of these conversations are bang, 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 bang. No, it's impossible. That's my thing. But I feel like we grow so much more talking about it, like we're doing now, like just hear the other person, right? Instead of telling them they're wrong because they believe in something, just hear them out and hear their point and just talk about it. That does so much better, I think, on the long term to revisit those conversations and growing through that, as opposed to just like, you're wrong.
And conversations don't also necessitate a winner at the end of it.
No,
either, right? Like that doesn't have to be, but it feels like, and that's just like in general, I feel like a lot of people are that way, just having to win something out of a conversation. Whereas it's like, that doesn't have to be, we can agree to disagree or just both, I don't know, but that feels, maybe it's because I'm getting older, but it feels like in current times, I feel like that's a rare sight to not like actually argue and to want to win over someone else in a online discourse at least, But in person it's different, but when you look at online discourse, it feels like
I think you have a good point when you said the ego thing. To be honest, because I saw a lot, and don't get me wrong, I saw a lot of amazing people giving great message that maybe believes in different things, and I really do believe they're doing some good. But I also see a lot of, as you said, ego. But it goes beyond religion and all these things. You see these people everywhere. Like if I'm a huge fan of like nutrition and reading about what food does what. I love these things, but you see these people, going in grocery stores and throwing things on the floor and saying like it's bad if you eat that, you're this and this. Like you see that in a lot of spaces. Like people, there's some people that the second they learn something or they change their mind maybe or something, the entire universe needs to follow that or they're wrong type thing. And I feel like we see that in a lot of, you even see that, to be fair, we see that in music even in some communities and stuff like that. So it's an ego. It's completely driven by that, because if you're, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like if you're comfortable with yourself and you're, as you said, you're in a good place and stuff like that, you don't feel like just telling people it's wrong what you do in most cases, right? In any cases. So but I'm sure the intention is good for a lot of these people, to be fair. I feel like a lot of they really want something good, but maybe maybe the
The
way it's
execution
done.
might not be
Exactly.
quite
Exactly.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah, but I do sincerely believe that a lot of people really they mean well. They really mean well. In their mind, they're like, I'm saving you right now. You know what I mean? Like I'm
Yeah.
saving you. But the person receiving it is just like, I'm gone. I'm not listening to. I'm
Yeah.
done. So
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's a really good point. That's something that I have not. I had a hard time doing as a younger man. um, but now, being like, once you turn 30, I feel like a lot of that ego kind of washes away, and you realize that people do not change their beliefs because you impose yours on them or compel them with your doctrine. Um, they people's beliefs are changed when they choose, you know,
yeah,
when they feel it's right for them, when they personally align with the values that feel right for them. And what feels right for me may not feel right for you. And uh, I wish we would spend more time just accepting that fact,
exactly.
instead of
Everyone's got their own journey as well. Like everyone,
exactly,
it's like different forks in the roads that'll lead to eventually, whatever decision they end up making. Like that's the other thing. Like trying to, you know, things don't need to happen now either, right? Because I
No.
feel like
yeah,
there's some sort of urgency with some of these things sometimes, but it's like, hey, like everyone's on their own path. We'll get there when we get there.
It comes
yeah,
down to like let people be who they are in the first place type thing. You know what I mean? Like so you never know your little comment or just like you should have like I feel it does more good to even if you don't understand that person. Okay, it's okay if you don't get what that person
yeah.
let
That's
people be
literally called
themselves.
empathy.
Exactly. Exactly. More, the bottom line is might be with more empathy, a lot of problems would be gone.
Yeah,
I feel like that's the entire. Just put yourself in their shoes. Just picture that not everybody has the same life, same background, same thing. So, you know, you have a good point. Empathy is key.
Well,
absolutely.
look, we're running short on time here, but I'd love to maybe at least at minimum give you the floor to kind of talk about
Yeah.
anything that you've got currently going on or coming up or any of that sort of stuff that you'd want to talk about. And alluded to Lucky Shot earlier.
Yeah,
If you want to talk about that for a bit, or floor is yours, man. Whatever you want to
absolutely.
kind of wrap this up with.
Yeah, I just want to first say thank you. Thank you to you guys for having me on the podcast, Brutality Podcast. Thank you, Yan and Dom. Thank you to the people that submitted questions in the post. I was just looking through like a summary of them and hoping that I think I covered most of them.
We
I'm just gonna like kind
surprisingly
of
went through a lot of them without actually asking the
yeah.
question type thing.
Naturally type. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just kind of like rapid fire through some
Go
of them
for
that
it.
I
Hell
have
yeah.
written down that I'm not sure that we talked about. And if I
Sure.
did, maybe I'll just revise them here.
Yeah.
So one of them was, do we anticipate challenges in recruiting musicians to perform live? Actually, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's my mindset. Maybe like the universe is just like conspiring for me, in a good way. I haven't really had to put out any wanted ads for musicians for the band. Both guitar players approached me and came to me at like a very competent level, and we're like, "Yep, I'll just learn whatever you need me to learn. Build the playback, build the tracks for the set, and I'll take it and go." So to answer that question, as far as getting people to play, it's been pretty easy so far. We've got a great drummer lined up, really good guitar players, and my dude Chris Yates, who played bass in the original TCA lineup, will reprise his role. Shout out
Hell
to
yeah.
Yates. He
It's
also played
awesome.
with me in Ear to Ear, just a solid friend and bass player. Excited to have him on board and bring on the new guys too. The next question was to what motivated me to revive TCA instead of continuing or rebooting the Holy Guile. So I didn't talk
Because
a whole lot of
that's a whole other thing we
that's a
could have
whole
got
other
into.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll try and summarize it the best I can. The Holy Guile was kind of like sparked by the whiplash I received on the sound change from Guardians to Conviction, and then also like I was on my own spiritual journey of like breaking my own ego and breaking the like the dissonance in belief versus religion and how that is at odds or jives with spirituality. Yeah, so that's that, and the Holy Guile kind of represented my a lot of my negative emotions that I had pent up around that situation.
Mm.
I took down that music for a long time because I feel like it misrepresented me as who, and like once I had some time and space to reflect on those things, and you know the message was very angry. I also had like a kind of like scary interaction with the fan where he had taken the some of the lyrics in a very radical way,
Mm.
and that was like a big turnoff for me. Um, that was just like a small incident that kind of like bubbled and like
Yeah.
sat inside me, and I was like, do I really want to put out this kind of like, I don't know, what really felt rooted in hateful emotion. And that's something I kind of am at odds with that I see in new music these days. Um, you see the word hate thrown out a lot. You see the word violence thrown out a lot. It's like a zip code, like violence from,
Yeah.
Indiana,
Yeah.
or hate mosh. You
Hmm.
know, in one sense, it's like, yes, this is aggressive music. This is angry music. This is the proper medium for channeling those things. But there's also a line where um,
That's all it is,
if that's all it is, and this is your only release, sometimes it's not the most healthy thing. And for me, the Holy Guile was a way for me to channel all these like negative emotions, and I got it out of my system. So I don't want to throw, or I don't want to say that it's not like you shouldn't do it. We need angry bands. We need pissed
Mhm.
off bands. We need hate mosh. We need violence. Like, I want to see crowd killing. Like I want it. I
You
want
heard
to
it here
eat.
first.
I want to eat those spin kicks.
We're just gonna
I'm
clip that and
Yeah.
no
yes,
context after.
yes. Um, that has its place in the scene. We need that in hardcore, and but it's like everything. It's nuance. Don't define your entire. I don't want to define my entire brand around hate.
Mhm.
We got enough hate in the world. We got enough violence in the world. You know, you
Definitely.
turn on the news, and it's there. Like, I'm angry at these things as well, but I don't want to build my brand around hating these things.
Mhm.
I get that art reflects the times, and I'm not saying we shouldn't write about it either. Like, we should, but like I said, nuance. Um,
And maybe just not for you, like not your
yeah, yeah,
place, right?
yeah.
It just doesn't jive with you, right? Like ultimately,
It's just
it's
completely
just other
fine.
people can fill that role. That's okay too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess that's where I'm getting at is,
Hmm.
um, I'm past that. The
Yeah.
Holy Guile for me is just a chapter in my life. My good buddy Curran that was playing guitar in Ear to Ear, he convinced me. He's like, you should still put it back up on Spotify. Now that you're like coming back into making music again, because it's like a diary entry. This is a snapshot of where you were at this time in your life.
Yeah.
And just because it doesn't represent you now, it doesn't mean you have to like, hide it or
Erase
like,
that part
or
of,
or
yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's still part of me. I still put it out there, and there's like some really good there's some great breakdowns there, some great riffs. Like,
But also help people during the same kind of road. You know, you were learning and going through something during that time, and you never know. Some people might be at that very same step, and it could be kind of helping. That I know I'm getting maybe deeper in it, but it's true. You never know, you know, how people are going to receive it, and maybe it's even going to help. I just wanted to say that can be
yeah,
powerful. You know.
absolutely. Yeah, I guess that's a great point. Yeah, and that there's probably somebody out there that is like, I shouldn't put out this song because it's too dark. You know, it's rooted in such a bad place. I don't want to. One thing I genuinely believe is that the music that you put out has an effect on you psychologically. Um, and so if you build your career on all your mental health issues, you know, what happens when you get better? Are you going to be able to maintain that same raw energy and that fueled you in the first place? Like, how are you going to evolve? Or are you going to be stuck? Like,
Yeah,
because
because you're
this
reliving it
you're reliving it
constantly.
every
Yeah.
day. So um, I guess the takeaway there is to just be mindful of the kind of vibrations you're putting out. Um, yeah, so that is like a long-winded way of explaining why I chose TCA over THD. Um, TCA kind of represents the way forward. You know, the ultimate heart of TCA is to uplift, and that's something that I feel aligns with me personally more appropriately.
Just proves is that you're, you know, you feel what you're making, right? That to me, the way I'm
Yeah,
hearing that is you're real about what you're doing. It's not an act. It's not like, oh, I'm this character. It's like you need to resonate and you're true with your art, which I don't want to speak
Well,
for everyone, but it's exactly what any fans really want at the end of the day is for your favorite artist to be themselves and to be happy in what they're doing. So
if the Holy Guile ever comes back, I'll give you a ring to make sure you're all right.
yes,
yeah,
something's up.
yeah. If it ever did, I don't know what that would look like. I feel like the another reason why TCA and Holy Guile, like, the reason to take one over the other is one, TCA just has like a larger following too, and there's a big crossover in the sounds. You know, I was doing the same type of vocals in both projects, also very similar riffage. The Holy Guile had like a lot more heavy production, but we have got some. The next couple of songs have like go a little bit harder with, you know, non guitar elements and augmenting the sound with cool effects and stuff, and kind of flexing the production muscle a little bit.
Okay.
So some of the essence of Holy God will be infused in, you know, all the music that I do make, because I have that under my belt. I have that on like on my resume, and
Yeah, it's a part of you,
something. It's a part of
regardless,
me,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So absolutely. Um, so I think that covers most of the questions that I had that I don't think we answered. Is there anything in the chat here? We got some
I
love. Thank you guys.
It's a lot of love, yeah.
California Gold, such a cool song. Yes. So this was our song that we wrote as a tribute to Mitch Lucker. You know, that's another like great song that was the second record was a little lighter than the first one. Um, um, you know, like, this song deserves to be like out in the world. The world deserves to have this song. This tribute to Mitch, who was such an influential vocalist for me, and still is. I still go back and listen to The Cleansing, Black Crown, and those records are just like Suicide Silence is just such an awesome band, and I love them. And and will cherish those records. And Mitch, like, really, his energy. Did you guys ever get a chance to see Suicide Silence?
Yeah.
They're
A long time,
really,
yeah.
really intense.
Yeah.
You know,
Scary.
and paved the way for us in a lot of ways, and all the deathcore that we have today.
It was the blueprint for the live show was their performance, like 1,000%. There are a million other really cool bands out there doing the deathcore thing, but people remember the stomp,
Yeah.
Mitch's stomp and the wings
Lucker
and
stomp, yeah.
yeah, like there were just how crazy those guys went, and in particular Mitch Lucker, I think really resonated with a lot of people, especially back in the day.
Yeah, like again, I won't start because I'm always I feel like I'm talking about Mitch all the because he's a very good influence for a lot of people. I feel like, but you know the thing you said about Joey earlier, not to make any comparison, I just mean you said like this guy, you just knew he had a vision and stuff like that. I feel the same way about Mitch, meaning like he's the kind of person who no matter what he would have done musically, art style, whatever, he was bringing things to the next level. Like he had like the vision. You mentioned Black Crown. I had this discussion many times back in freaking 2011, 2012. He already saw that new metal would come back and would be cool again. And I don't know if guys you remember, but back when he released the Black Crown, people were not back on new metal yet at all. It wasn't even still back, and he saw it. Like these people, there's not a lot of people like that, and those are the people who brings things to the next level, and Mitch was definitely that person. I just wanted to, because you talked about Joey and stuff like that, there's not many people like that, and Mitch was definitely a visionary and someone.
Yeah, visionary is the right word.
I think.
Absolutely.
I really think. I keep saying he was and still is deathcore in my vision. You know what I mean? Like he was everything, the essence of it felt natural, right? Nothing felt gimmicky or forced or whatever. It was just him doing his thing, and it worked perfectly. So I think that's what it was.
Yes, sir. Well,
yeah, it was awesome, by the way. It was so cool, man. Like I just want to say it would be cool to have you back in the future at some point, because it flew by. I don't know, dumb. Like I didn't see.
Yeah.
It just felt like 10 minutes or something. It was amazing.
Absolutely.
No, dude,
thank you so much.
Yeah, of course, dude, and yeah, I'm glad we could connect, and this was a really cool conversation. And for what it's worth, yeah, I mean, I've got a list of a bunch of other stuff we could have talked about.
I mean,
you're still putting out music, all the good stuff. So we'll have to invite you back on at some point and talk some more.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, yeah, thanks for hanging.
Thank you.
And I don't know. Did you have anything you want to plug? I always want to make sure people plug their shit.
Yeah,
absolutely.
What you got coming up?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Important.
Where can we find you? All the stuff.
Yeah. Before I get to that, again, thank you, Yan, and thank you, Dom. Brutality podcast. Thank you to all the fans listening and supporting TCA and all my other music projects and that I've done in the past and music projects to come. Thank you to my bands, all my new guys in TCA and Yates. Shout out to my other band, my punk band, which I didn't really get to talk about too much, but is really like another really precious project of mine. Thank you to Lucky Shot, Blake, Kira, Derek, and Brandon. Lucky Shot is another experiment of mine to make a style of music that I love making, which is hardcore punk. And the shout out to Columbus Hardcore for influencing me to start a hardcore band. I've been having so much fun. We just played a gig last week, and it was such a great time. Shout out to Columbus Hardcore. So the things coming up, you can expect a new Crimson Armada song next week on my birthday.
Hell yeah.
Yes.
Hell yeah. All right.
You're hearing it.
Happy birthday in advance.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Thank you so much. I'm very grateful for another year to make music, another year to connect with people, and another year to grow. And yeah, so the new song is called Ceremony.
Okay.
It is a celebration of saying of doing away with old rituals and beginning anew. It
Okay.
features Levi Benton from Miss May I.
Oh shit!
Oh,
Hell
Yes.
yeah!
I'm very excited to get this one out. It's very different from some of the past songs. It's even in a different tuning. It's in D standard,
Oh.
and kind of incorporates some of my new influences. You can also expect new music from Lucky Shot as well. Maybe not as soon as next week, but definitely coming soon. You can also expect a.
You
Sorry,
guys
go
put
ahead.
something. Well, you guys put something out not too long ago, right? Is it a live
Yes.
thing? Like, yeah.
Yeah, we put out a demo at the end of last year, right around the time that Ancient Call came out, and we also recorded a live demo with my buddy Anis, Anis Latif at Black Moon's recording. Shout out to Anis. Yeah, we did a live recording there. We had such a good time. The entire video is on YouTube, and it's really cool. It's shot by my boy Kyle McDowell. Shout out to Kyle. A phenomenal photographer based and videographer based in Ohio. Yeah, we just put out that live demo, so it's on Spotify and YouTube. So go check that out if you're into hardcore and hardcore punk bands, kind of like Turnstile, kind of like Angel Dust. So something very different from TCA. And any new fans that are like, coming into getting to know TCA now, or people that may not have known me that well in the past, is I like lots of different kinds of music, and I make lots of different kinds of music. And in the past, I've held on to those things and kind of like let them die on my hard drive because, oh, I didn't have the perfect way to market it, or maybe it's going to dilute my audience, or I'm not going to be able, it's going to be cringe or whatever, or for whatever number of reasons.
Classic excuse, the cringe.
I've come up with any sort of excuse to just not put it out. So 2025, I've thrown out that mindset and mentality. I'm done.
No more stops.
No more. So lots of new music, and you can expect another new surprise project. This one is a new metal project.
There we go.
It's-
Speaking of which,
Yeah. So it over the course of the last like couple years that I've like been singing, like not just screaming, I discovered I have a great voice for new metal. I think it suits the sound really well. Kind of sounds like Linkin Park, Audio Slave, Soundgarden, Seven Dust a little bit.
Leanna's horned up right now. Leanna's all about that.
Definitely interested, dude. Like you should see during the week, dude. I'm still listening to the first Linkin Park album. Like to this day, I'm listening to Paper Cut and all these songs. And
Hybrid
now,
Theory, Meteora.
I mean,
hugely
it's-
influential albums on me. Like we talked a lot about my metal influences, but like I listened to a really wide variety of types of music, and like they all impact me in some way and inspire me to like all the different kinds of music that I can make. And sometimes those influences don't fit in a box like TCA, without compromising what makes it what it is. So I'll just create a different type of
so cool,
the type
man.
of sound. So this is a new project. The working title is Father Stone.
Okay.
Yes. That's just a working title. I don't know if I'll change that or not, but I'm pretty sure that's it.
Okay.
Okay. You heard it here first.
Yeah, you hear it first. You heard the name here first. So that will be something that you hear very soon, and I'm very excited to get that out. Also, very different vibe and sound from music I've made in the past. It's got some like blues influence too, some hard rock. It's gonna be cool. I'm excited for it.
All right. Awesome.
I love it, dude. It's so cool just to know that there's so much
yeah.
so much stuff to look forward to. So much
Very-
coming up. For
yeah,
fans of
very-
you,
Yeah.
people will
Yeah.
be excited. Like it's a cool 2025
That's
is the year. So
And real quick, since we're talking about new metal, this new, like, it's not new, but like I don't know if you heard Split Chain. If you love new metal, just give a listen to Split Chain.
Okay.
It's kind of new. I think it's one of our actually listeners who were like, check that out. Ever since, I'm not kidding. Ever since I'm listening to that very often, so I'm just plugging them. Split Chain. It's, if you love new metal, it's super cool. But I'll be on the lookout, dude, because like you might be surprised. There's way more people that actually love both deathcore, metalcore, and new metal. There's a huge connection.
A lot of us went through the same trajectory. You were talking
Yeah.
Linkin Park to Black Dahlia Murder to all this stuff. I'm like, hey, that was mine too. So, you know, I think
Cool.
There's a
I'm
lot
excited.
of people. You might be surprised of the amount of people who actually really love both project like me. So we'll be on the lookout for that. Definitely.
Awesome. Again, thank you guys so much. I had such a great time. This podcast rules. You guys rule. Yeah, and Dom, nice to meet you guys.
Dude, thanks. Same, dude. Same. Really, we had the, like, I'm talking for both of us all the time,
Absolutely.
but like, it's just, it was amazing. You have a great energy, dude. A super cool, positive vibe. It's like it was great. Felt like just hanging out, you know, the entire time. It was awesome. Thank you for that.
Awesome.
Yeah, man. Cool.
Thank you so much.
We'll let you get to the rest
Yeah.
of your night, but we'll have to keep in touch. All right.
For sure.
Absolutely. We'll talk again
right.
soon.
All right.
Sir, have a good
Take
one.
care, man.